Hello, everyone. This is Cody Lee of BlackCatBooks.org, author of I, the Dragon, Cruel and Beautiful Rabbit Hole, Lore and Frey, and the upcoming Jaw of the Dragon. This has been a long time coming. I really have been putting off talking about like Nick Rikieta in any meaningful capacity over the past couple of years or so. The reason I feel I personally was very adamant that I wouldn't involve myself with any e-drama. I would like shy away from that kind of thing. It wasn't something I really wanted for like myself or my brand. I didn't think it would like suit me very well. It's something that like I feel very strongly about. I really detest like the blood sports thing. I really just detest like the internet commentary thing. I really detest the drama thing. I have a very serious problem with that. I really do. But in this specific instance, witnessing the decline of Nick Rikieta in real time and seeing like the staunch refusal among most YouTubers to like really cover this in any meaningful capacity, in order to like grift a few more super chats off of like Nick's audience, very generous audience. I feel that I really need to like speak up about this because this is, I think, like the biggest decline of a YouTuber I have ever seen. I mean, I would say that like Nick was always kind of like this behind the scenes, and I didn't care, honestly. Like, I feel like, you should be allowed to have your own personal quirks and interests and stuff like that. That's not the problem, honestly. I'm not sure like the degenerate like behavior is really the problem in and of itself. The issue is that he's not professional about it. Like people are going to Nick Rikieta for like one very specific reason is they want to get hot, spicy takes on like legal news coverage. And 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, like he was covering that. Like he was actually like talking about legal matters. And over time, I mean, even like 3 years ago, like there's been like this gradual shift into talking about sexual topics, talking about like irrelevant nonsense, like personal stories and anecdotes that frankly, nobody cares about, rather than doing anything, honestly, than other than talking about legal matters. And now, going into 2022, we're kind of at the point now where he's trying to say that like, oh, I'm not interested in covering legal topics anymore. You don't control me. I do what I want. But here's the thing, like your audience does kind of control you, because if you don't do what your audience wants, they're going to leave. Now, what I think he believes is happening is that his audience, he has a big enough audience that like he can just like maintain the Coomer degenerate like people on disability, like anime fans that like stay at home and like watch all of his streams. He can like go live and get like 4,000 people watching. I think it's something like that last time I checked. I don't know, I could be wrong about that. That might have been like during the height of his popularity, but he used to be able to pull huge numbers. So he probably thinks that like by pandering to like the most degenerate members of his community, he'll be able to just maintain his income, maintain his viewership, and maintain like the same amount of super chats with like none of the real work or effort that goes into like covering legal topics. And that's the thing that about Nick that's really struck me for years now. And a big reason I've been kind of like um low key shitting on him since about like what was it, 2019 or something. Like I don't like the fact that he doesn't seem to actually practice law. Like that's the thing. He's a YouTube lawyer who doesn't seem to like have any practical experience handling the kind of cases he's covered. And as a result of that, he has very limited knowledge. He has no practical experience. He has no ability to explain what's really happening. And if you have like even like the most basic rudimentary knowledge of how this stuff is supposed to work, like I do, like you begin to pick up on this stuff and you begin to pick up on like what makes you begin to pick up on the fact that like his persona that he puts on of being like the based like small town lawyer is completely fake. Like he's never done any real legal work. He just sits at home playing Doom Eternal or whatever, like watching his wife get fucked by other men. Like that's the Rekieta experience. That is his life. That is his life. Like it couldn't be more obvious that he doesn't really do anything. And as a result of that, that's become very clear I think, in how he handles legal coverage, right? Like I think the Kyle Rittenhouse case is probably the example that I always go to when talking about this, and in which he, on his Twitter, like he was promoting his stream, like trying to tell everyone that like, oh, Kyle's lawyer, he's completely fucking him over, like he's intentionally sabotaging him, he's not objecting enough. But like, I spoke to other lawyers about the situation, and they told me that like, no, objecting too much to this kind of thing, it makes you look guilty to a jury, right? Like it's that kind of thing, that kind of like overlooking like certain critical aspects of like what legal work is, that makes Nick Rikieta such a poor legal channel. And like again, I've kind of said this in the past, but I want to repeat this here. Like I think the only reason anybody ever supported this guy was purely because of his stated political beliefs. Now I say stated because he doesn't actually believe any of this stuff he's talked about, but um like people thought he was based like when it came to certain topics, and they liked that about him, right? Like he came around at the right time. He was able to leech on to like a couple of high profile like Me Too cases, talk about them, and build an audience on that. And now he's segued into what he actually wants to talk about, which is just his degenerate behavior. And I really, the point what I want to get at, when it comes to talking about this, there's a reason I'm doing this. There's a reason people are upset at you. It's not just Kiwi Farms. It's not just a fringe internet community. It's normal people. It's your normal audience. There are people everywhere are becoming sick of your shit. I became sick of your shit years ago, and I've stayed silent about it for the longest time. But like seeing like what's happened, seeing some of these like Alyssa clips. Alyssa clips is probably the go-to clip channel for following the situation. Cope splaining, a great video series. Yeah, watching these Alyssa clips, like seeing the just how far he's fallen over the past year, it's downright embarrassing. Like I cannot believe this. It's come to this. It just seems like he's gone completely downhill, and nobody really knows why. Like my theory at this stage is that like the pandemic caused him personal problems. He wasn't able to take his wife on like, their never-ending vacations, and he was complaining about it. Like, I think like he's overindulged himself on like the freedom that the government has allowed him over the past year. So I think that's what's happened, is that like he was always kind of doing this stuff on the down low, but now he's becoming a lot more open about it. Now that like now that the pandemic's over, and things have gotten back to normal, like he's kind of just going back to what he used to be. But now I think the major difference is that like now he's not putting on the persona. Now you're getting like the real Nick and like the real situation, and seeing like what the real life is like at the Rekieta household. And it is this it's it's beyond embarrassing. Like it's I would go so far as to call it disgusting, honestly. Is just seeing what he talks about. Okay. Let's enough rambling about Nick and my feelings on this. Let's check this out.
Privacy always comes with risk. Everything freedom oriented is based in risk. My own story is simple. I used to keep my life more private. I started sharing my life more. There's a trade off. The trade off was a bunch of people.
What did you get out of sharing your life more? That's my question. That's something I'm doing here, by the way. On my channel, I don't talk about my personal life. I don't talk about where I live. I don't talk about the people I associate with. I don't talk about like women in my life. I don't talk about like really anything. And there's a reason for that. Like I don't want my personal life to cross over into my internet culture life at all. And like just some of the things I talk about, it's not something I really want to talk about with people in real life. So I I feel very strongly about that. I feel that like I will never show like anyone else on my channel. I'll never like go into personal details. I'll never like you don't even know my real name. That's the that's the reality of like the situation at the Harmon Smith channel, is that I I don't tell you anything because you don't need to know anything. like fundamentally. Like the audience is here for like the content, right? They're here for like the whatever you're doing as a legal channel. They're not here for you. They're not here for they're not here for your you as an individual. They're here for what you can do for them as a creator. And like recently, Nick just doesn't seem to be interested in doing anything other than being a hedonistic tool.
Got really fucking mad about me sharing my life more. The other trade off,
They were mad about what you were doing. It was what you've been doing over the past year, past couple of years, I would say. It's been hypocritical and it's contradicted like numerous statements you've made in the past about how you feel about like sexuality, about how you feel about like expressing yourself online, how you think you should conduct yourself online, and how you should handle your personal relationships. Like, remember when this guy used to call himself like a Chad dad? Like, oh, look at me, I have a wife that I've been married to for 18 years, and I have 5 kids with her. Like, what happened, Nick? Like, what happened?
is simple. A bunch of other people.
Oh, by the way, oh man, I completely forgot. Mr. Medicare will never cover this. Will never cover this. That is like the major reason that I've decided to come out and like discuss this because Jim is an ignorant, lazy motherfucker who's more interested in dodging taxes than actually, producing interesting content. You know, if he really was like dying, I think he should have left the internet a long time ago and like spent time with his family and enjoyed his personal life more. Like the streaming, it's depressing. Like people make fun of Nick for like all the stuff he's pulled. I think Jim is worse. Like, let's be real. Like Jim has gotten to the point where like he's straight up defending his internet friends. He's straight up like refusing to talk about certain people until like he just can't like ignore the situation anymore. Fuck Jim. Jim is like a piece of shit who peaked just before the Patreon went live. Like he's been irrelevant since he started up that Patreon. Fuck Jim.
We're really happy about the honesty and openness of my life. You get, I mean, you get all things. I'm not a good actor. I'm not great at it. Even when my life is not very public,
This is kind of my problem with his shows, by the way, and a big reason why I stopped watching. Like he spends so much time like talking about shit you don't care about. Like if I'm watching a Nick Rikieta stream or like a law splitting stream, like I don't want to see Nick like bitching about like irrelevant shit about like how people feel about him on the internet. He's so thin-skinned. I I want to see legal coverage. Like that's the only time you should go live is when you have some legal topic that desperately needs to be talked about. That's when you should go live. That's when you stream. Otherwise, you should be doing like real legal work and like, living your normal life. It's not exactly hard to do. But this guy has over the past 5 years, his life is oh, is my thing going live? Oh, over the past 5 years, he's just kind of regressed to the point where was I getting at? Uh Shit, I lost it because of the noise. Basically, hmm, he refuses to like cover any actual legal information, right? Like he doesn't actually provide the show that people are coming for. Like he's tried to segue into doing something else and it's simply not going over very well at all. Like there are a handful of people who are enabling it, but honestly, let's be real here. I imagine a lot of them are trolls and are just fucking with him, and that just doesn't come out yet. Just like I find it very hard to believe that there are like attractive females in his like Discord server that are like sending him nudes and stuff like that. I imagine it's like a bunch of dudes who are just like ripping off chicks' pictures online and just like passing themselves off as if they're them or something like that. I obviously haven't looked into this. I've never even been to his Discord. It's had a bad reputation for a long time, but um I feel like he's really overestimating how much people are going to put up with his nonsense. I think it's been heading in this direction for a long time. I've said as much, but like it's coming to a head in the next year or so. I think 2023 is going to be like big when it comes to the downfall of Rekieta.
I wasn't a great actor. It was a time. It's a formula of time before I'm going to talk about life because I fucking live it. Like I live it and I stream every day And when you get on
Nobody's
there
making you stream every day.
for several hours a night,
Oh no! The lawyer has to stream for several hours at night. Oh man, what a hard existence. Poor millionaire Nick Rikieta. He has to sit in his house streaming all the time. Oh no, there's no other way to make money. Like he has to sit there and play video games. Oh, I mean, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Dark Side Phil. Same attitude, like the exact same attitude. It's weird how similar they are. I haven't seen anyone else like bring up the comparison, but he really does come off like like the DSP excuse of like, oh man, streaming. It's a lot of work. Stream less. Like that's it's not your audience's responsibility to like enjoy everything you're doing and like tune into every stream, you know? Like if your stream isn't entertaining, people aren't going to watch you.
my God, like you're
I feel very strongly about that, by the way. It's a major reason why I cut back streaming in the past month or so. I was just having problems fitting into my schedule with all the writing I need to do and the things I'm trying to accomplish in my life. It's just impossible.
going to talk about what's going on in your life. You just have to. You can't keep it up. You can't keep up the pretense of not doing the thing. If you're going to stream a lot for several hours and talk candidly without doing like, you can do like crazy planned things and all this stuff. That's not my style. I'm going to share my life because I'm bad at keeping secrets. I'm bad at keeping things private or whatever. But the thing I want to point out is that, like, people make up stuff when you're private, and this is where I'm getting to. I was just
Okay, no, okay. When exactly did Rekieta's okay, when exactly did people hmm what exactly did people make up? Like that's the thing because nobody has ever gotten angry at Nick over like nonsense, you know. Typically if his audience, like not his opposition, like his actual audience, people who actually watch his stream, like the people who actually watch his streams, they have a very good reason to come after you, right? They will tell you what they're upset with, and it's always something that like you did. You know, they're very open about what you did wrong. And like the issue right now, 2022, like the end of the year, is that you're constantly not only refusing to admit it, that like the endless sex talk is unpopular and like honestly kind of disgusting. Like instead of admitting you're wrong and like moving away from that, you're doubling down on it. You're getting angry about it. You're getting really upset. I don't know. I don't know if I should talk about this story, but earlier this year I had that fight with my parents, right? And I was getting kind of angry about it, and I kind of said some things about them on in videos and stuff like that. I think streams, like it's not something uh I regretted saying as much as I did about that. And I realized that like my audience was kind of put off by it, and I thought that maybe I was being unreasonable. And so like I dialed back on it. I stopped talking about it. I kind of learned from my mistake. Like, I don't see Nick doing that. Like I don't see him like having that like moment of self-reflection where he realizes that like, maybe the stuff I'm doing is not going over well with the vast majority of my audience. Like maybe they actually have a point when they're comparing me to iDubbbz or Maddox or well, is anyone comparing him to Maddox? Who's the other guy they're comparing him to? It's iDubbbz and oh yeah, Jack Murphy. Yeah. Instead of realizing that like you're essentially becoming the next Jack Murphy. You're just like pretending what you're doing is perfectly normal and acceptable when it's really not. Like my advice, honestly, just stream less. I know I've been saying this a lot, but I do feel like Rekieta just doesn't have anything in his life other than streaming. Like it feels like he hates like his life. He hates like the situation he's in. Like he has all this money and all these endless vacations, but it's not like fulfilling. It's not like exciting to him. It's gotten boring. And he's struggling trying to find meaning in himself because he doesn't do anything. All right.
Distracted by the chat, of course. People have made
He's a trust fund kid who never learned how to like strive to a goal and like accomplish something. That's kind of my feeling on him, like watching him talk about this.
up stuff about my life for while I was private. And the point that I'm trying to get to is when I became more open about my life, people decided people decided that this was a hypocrisy about my old life. But it's not a hypocrisy. It's a hypocrisy about what people had decided about me.
He must be on something because like he's not making himself very clear. He sounds kind of slurred. He kind of sounds like that. I don't know. I don't know if he's like slightly buzzed or what. If he's been drinking, it kind of comes off that way. He's not being like completely clear. I would say. Like his point is that like he thinks that like he's not being hypocritical, but he is. That's the thing. People will point to countless examples of him like very specifically saying to never do certain things, and here he is in 2022 doing those very specific things.
They had created a narrative in their life about whatever I was doing, and then I shattered that narrative by being me. And there's some things like this past year, I'm not pretending I have not changed a little bit. Like I've done some different things. I've had more fun than I've had maybe ever, right? I've enjoyed life a little bit. I've enjoyed freedom a lot, especially lately. Coming back after being canceled from YouTube, that was the sweet, sweet nectar of the fucking gods. It makes you feel fucking invincible in a way. You're not.
It's weird how he like I noticed a couple of videos like this. He really seems to think he's like has everything set up where like it's not possible for him to be taken off YouTube and stuff like that. Uh, it's definitely gonna happen. He goes on too many drunken rants, like going after too many high profile targets. Like it is going to happen at some point. It's just a matter of like when. Like he's I don't like how smug he is about this. Like, oh man, YouTube, they're never gonna take me out. Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, Nick. He really legitimately thinks that like he is always gonna be on YouTube. That is funny to me. That is hilarious.
But you're a little less worried about things like, holy shit, I came back from losing everything. So with that, fuck off. And then, of course, signing the deal with Rumble and Locals makes it way different. Way different. And that's where I get to go.
These alternative video platform sites have a tendency to go bankrupt in like 5 years. Blip doesn't exist anymore. Blip, I would say, was more relevant than Rumble or Odyssey ever were, right? Or Locals ever were, right? Like Blip actually had like that guy with the glasses personalities, like pushing for it. Like it had a lot of momentum, and then it just died one day. And then those people had to go back to YouTube. Like I don't think YouTube is ever going away. It's always going to be the monolith that most video creators like flock to.
No, I get to be me. But I'm a little different for sure than I was a year ago. If you talk to me, like it's too complicated to get into on live streams or whatever. But I know people have seen a little bit of a change. If you want to say that change is inconsistent with some value I profess, I'm not going to stop you. Ever. Ever at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He says that, but he complains about people talking about this like all the time. Like several, like I would say like half an hour a show. He dedicates a lot to like trying to tell us that like, oh, I don't care about kiwi farms. I don't care what like the trolls are saying about me. If you didn't care, you wouldn't mention it at all. That's the thing.
And
That's
my
the
value has
rub.
always been I'm a libertarian. I believe
Libertarians are scum. Like Nick Rikieta is the person who convinced me of that. Fuck libertarians. You people are just scum of the earth.
in freedom. I don't really judge people for
I believe in freedom. I don't need to have I shouldn't have any responsibility. I shouldn't be asked to pay taxes. Like, ugh.
the life, their choices, their decisions. I might laugh at them, I might make fun of them, and I still will. And I don't think that anything I've laughed at or made fun of is inconsistent with what I do. Some people disagree. I'm not here to change their minds. It's okay. Don't ever let someone else dictate your life. Don't ever let someone else dictate your joy. Don't let other people dictate how you live. When you do that, when you are subservient to someone else, you will subserve your happiness. You'll subserve your fulfillment to someone else's criticism. Don't do that. Don't do that. You don't owe that to someone. The only times you owe that to anybody is if someone is paying your fucking bills. Your boss needs you to do something. You do the thing, obviously within the bounds of your values and morals. So, like, your boss is like, well, if you want to keep your job, you got to suck my dick, and you're not into sucking his dick. Don't do that, right? Like that.
What
That's
is he
not.
even talking about? Like he's so there's no way he's not wasted. He's so unclear. Like he's not making his point very well at all.
What I'm talking about. I'm talking about they ask you to do something, and you're like, I wouldn't normally do this. I'm not saying it's like a complete like moral 180. I'm saying it's like I wouldn't normally do this, but I'm okay with it, but it's not my thing. Cause that's just work, right? Like when I sold computers, I didn't really want to sell people like a low end e machine, but people wanted to buy them. This is e machines. I'm dating myself back to the late 90s. But yeah, if you wanted to buy an e machine, I knew they were bad. I'd tell you, this is not really the greatest machine, but if someone wanted to buy it at the end of the day, I'd sell you one because my boss wanted me to sell them, right? The company wanted me to sell them. That's just how it fucking goes, right? You sometimes have to do things that aren't within your purview, but don't compromise your morals. If you have to do something that compromises your morals and ethics, then you have to really evaluate whether you should do that or not. That's what you got to do. Here's the reality about all the posting in chat. I love that people are confident to post pictures of themselves. I prefer pictures.
Yes, yes, I'm happy that sometimes I get to see titties in my Discord stream. Oh man, I love that. Oh, this is what being a libertarian is all about. Come on, Dick.
Of real people to Instagram pictures and whatever. I love that people feel good about it. And I love that chat is largely encouraging. The person that chat is most critical of is me, which is appropriate. So when I post stuff, people make fun of me, and that's fine. That's as it should be. But when other people do it, they're actually really positive about it. Probably because everybody else is hotter than me.
Probably because people aren't like looking at these pages where you're posting this information. It's like buried in like your personal Discord, right? So like you would have to be a Patreon supporter. Oh, well, he doesn't have Patreon. You have to be a local supporter. You would have to have access to the Discord, and then you would have to like go in there. Like again, this kind of goes into the issue here is that the people who are supporting this are like the big parasocial, like degenerate coomers who kind of like make up the bulk of like his donator audience, his donation audience, right? Like it's not like representative of his entire audience, right? Like I would say most people have been rather put off by that, and that's where like the backlash is coming from. Like normal people who weren't aware this was going on are finding out about it and are getting kind of angry about it.
And that's always been the thing for me about like the ass posting or whatever. I don't get shit on. It's a meme, but the reality is, if people post stuff, they feel good about it, they get positive validation. I'm actually really fucking happy about that. Like that makes me really like I'm glad that that shit happens. That's my perspective. Nick validating being horny. Oh, I'm horny constantly. I mean, this is This should not be a secret. And Lady Ragus knows this, guys. My goal every day. Uh, I love sex.
Oh
all the
no.
parts of human sexuality. Make me really happy. I like engaging in them, and I would do it all the time. And so if I get to do that, great. If I don't, I'm okay.
So wait. Why isn't he having sex? Like, they're in the house together all the time. And this guy is talking about like, oh man, I I'd have sex with her all the time if I could. What else are you doing? Like, really? Like, wait a minute. Like, again, this has been observed among like the community and stuff like that. Like, if his sex life is so positive, why is it getting more and more degenerate? Like, it comes off like both parties, he and his wife, are very unhappy with like the current state of things, and they're like going to great lengths to try and like rekindle that like old passion or whatever. Um, and so they're just getting more and more ridiculous. And I think that's a really good example of that. Like, come on.
I don't know what else my daily goal would be. I'm at this weird place where I've kind of like hit all of the other Maslow shit, and so that's what's left.
Find something else. Like that's something I've been struggling with. I've kind of talked about this. Well, I think have I talked about this? I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I was in poverty like 5 years ago. I'm out now, but like it's weird like having a dishwasher. It's weird having a washing machine. It's weird having like things like that around the house. It's weird having heat. Actually, I remember when I didn't have heat in this house. Um, During like the coldest winter we had in like 20 years. I remember what that was like. And now that I have all those things, like I kind of struggled for a bit, like finding out what I wanted to do. And then like from there, you just you find something, and the thing is, and I don't think Nick understands this, you're not going to find it in being a degenerate, right? Like it's not fulfilling, it's not going to make you happy. And I think we're kind of already seeing like the signs that it's not making him happy, and he just doesn't want to admit it to himself. That's kind of where we're at right now. Nick really needs to acknowledge that what he's doing is not good for him or for those around him or for his audience.
Like, what else do I
But of course, you shouldn't revolve your life around what your audience wants, for sure.
have to fucking do? I've got the I've got the income. I'm fortunate enough to have the income locked down. I've got kids. I've got food. I've got shelter. I've got clothing. I've got all of the basic needs taken care of. That's it.
So basically, he just
This
doesn't
is
feel
not
fulfilled in his
sad.
personal life. Oops. He
Good.
doesn't feel fulfilled in his personal life, and so like he's just being a degenerate to fill that void, trying to like give his life meaning. That's what this is about. That's what he's doing. That's what he's been doing over the past couple of weeks, is just past couple of months, is just like trying to feel young again. Like this is, I think, a textbook midlife crisis. It does have that feel to it. It does feel like this guy just doesn't want to admit that he's older, and that like he really, really, really should be focused on other things. In particular, like his kids. Like he says he has kids. They're not that old. Like I think the oldest is like maybe 10. Like they still have a lot of growing up to do. And like this guy is, he and his wife, they're doing a bunch of drugs. They're doing all this degenerate shit. Those kids are in the house with them all the time. They're homeschooled. So it's an interesting situation because I'm not exactly sure what at what point would things go from like, okay, this is kind of shady, to like this is downright criminal behavior. Because I have seen some things that Nick has done that are kind of irresponsible. Like, I noticed today that he was trying to get out of trying to get out of paying taxes for his new like Mustang or whatever, his new car. I don't know how he was like going to put it down as like a business expense or something. I don't know how legal that is. I've I've never looked into that, but it seems like okay, that can't be right. That doesn't seem That doesn't seem reasonable at all. And of course, like we've talked about, like people notice like the PPP thing with like using Rekieta law to get like 20,000 in loans for the government that went to like that massage chair or whatever. Like there are plenty of examples of things that he's done over the past couple of years that are ridiculous, that are shady and stuff like that. And I suppose since nobody else is doing it, I'm probably going to do like a Rekieta retrospective and kind of talking about like some of this stuff in like an easily digestible form. Because I think that's the problem is that like because the community was so pro Rekieta, like initially, I think a lot of the weird stuff, a lot of the red flags have kind of gone like under the radar. So yeah, it's gonna be up to the community to kind of come out and say that like, we're not going to take this. Okay, this is unacceptable behavior. We're not going to support you. We're not going to watch you. It's over, right? I think like more people, everyone should be saying that. And honestly, we should be shaming the people who continue to enable him. I certainly wouldn't think very highly of Drexel if I thought he was enabling this, which I don't, by the way. I feel very optimistic that Drex is like talking to him behind the scenes. I don't know. That's kind of my opinion, though. I don't have any evidence for that. I've seen people like dispute that theory, but I'm a very strong believer in it. I would like to think Drexel is actually like the only person in Nick's life who's like telling him that what he's doing is ridiculous. But I don't know. I could be very wrong on that. It could be Drexel's fault that Nick is going down this path. Honestly, I don't see anything positive coming from this. I expect things to get worse and going into the new year and going forward. I expect more and more like information about the Riketas and their life and like maybe their background to come forward. Like I wonder if I wonder how things are gonna look like in the next 5 years. People are talking about like divorces. People are talking about like the kids getting taken away. Legal uh, the legal board getting involved. Like I've seen him insult like the Minnesota like legal people, the people who like run the bar association or whatever, because like his critics keep trying to get him disbarred. I wonder if that's on the table at this point because like he's so like he has done things that are I think unethical, and I wonder just what if anyone's going to like come up and get him in trouble for it. I wonder that. Obviously, my predictions. I do think he's going to get divorced eventually. I don't know if it's going to be like soon. 5 years probably. Probably less than that, but that's my prediction. I I expect the channel will get taken down at some point. I expect him to like just regress and regress and regress and just become like a shell of a human being. I don't think there's going to be any real recovery from this cuz I think like once he comes crawling back to his audience, once he like loses everything, like he's not going to be able to present the narrative of being this nice wholesome person anymore. Like we've seen the real Nick now. He's not able to keep up the illusion, and now that the illusion is shattered, people aren't going to want to like donate or really have anything to do with him, right? I think we're at the point where like the peak is over and we're in the decline period for his channel. And it only took 5 years. It's interesting to think about. Like, MatPat is still going strong. Game Theory is still there. Mega 64 still has their channel. Like, Cinemassacre still exists. Like, it's interesting to see just how quickly this guy fell off by the wayside. I do think that eventually he's going to be like replaced by someone better, but until that happens, yeah, this is going to be a complete train wreck. I'm very curious as to seeing where things go from here.